Welcome to Fox Valley Today. I'm your host, Anne Vickery. Joining me today, Sandy Pastore, who is Executive Director of the Oswego Senior Center in Oswego, Illinois. Welcome, Sandy. Glad you could make it over today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I was thinking, we're we're at the end of the year. You're not going to be back till after the first of the year, and maybe good for me and even my listeners. Who knows? I won't be back either, but kind of wanted to know about a little bit of a recap for the year. I mean, I'm going off script here a little bit, but what do you think are some of your biggest accomplishments this year that really made a difference in the services that you are providing?
Well, we started a Heart and Bones fitness class, which has really gone over well. It's on Wednesdays and Fridays right now, and then in the new year we're going to add, so it'll be 5 days a week.
Is that a little bit more about core strength?
It's really focusing on cardio and resistance training, so those things that everyone needs throughout life. So it's a really great class.
Right. That's it. And then I think you are going to add a third day for meals, or?
Oh yeah, we added a third day for meals this year. So that's on Wednesday World Bistro. We had our first Masquerade Ball benefit gala this year. We had a great craft fair again. We started a mindfulness group this past year, which will resume in I think the spring. We started martial arts this year, which was a lot of fun.
Well, I think that's a great idea. You know, you never know when you're going to have to give somebody the old head kick.
And people are having a great time. I have some pictures on my phone, but it's
a lot. Yeah, I think that's so interesting. And how many people do you think you average over there in and out every day for people who are coming for meals and
it depends on the day, but it could be anywhere from 75 to 200 people.
Really? That many people in the community are taking advantage of the Oswego Senior Center?
Yeah, because it's not just the meals, We had, I think, 423 people or 440 some people come through for meals this year. And we had...
No, more than 400. You mean...
400 unduplicated people.
Oh, of unduplicated people.
People coming through.
Yeah.
But we had like 1,200 people coming through for other things this year.
Right, and that's unduplicated people.
Unduplicated.
Yeah, that's really a good number. And there's so many other seniors out there that probably aren't even taking advantage of some of the things that you're doing.
Not yet. I think that sometimes people hear the word senior center and they're like, well...
I don't need that yet.
I don't need that yet, but I really want people to think of it as more of an engagement experience, and not the traditional sense of meals and bingo, but more of, let's do conversational Spanish, or let's take a conversational Chinese class, or learn how to use your smartphone, or learn some new computer skills, or have physical activity multiple days a week.
I was going to ask you, how many of your seniors actually carry smartphones as opposed to, you can still buy the flip phones.
I would say a good majority of them do. Yeah.
And they're texting their grandchildren, and they're Googling what time place is open.
They're Googling, they're texting, they're getting directions. They're FaceTiming and Skyping.
Yeah, it's amazing. I have, Ray has a cousin who is 90, and I'll tell you what, between her smartphone and her iPad, I mean, she's a wizard.
Right.
And it just, and I know the word technology is, it's more than a 4-letter word, and there's a reason for that, because it is kind of a big responsibility. But I think for seniors, every time they master something like that, it makes them feel so much more confident about themselves.
And so this past year we also developed some belief statements, and one of those belief statements is kind of what you just said, and it's that we believe that seniors are adaptive and resilient, just as they've always been. And if you think of, like, even in your lifetime, all the things that you've had to adapt to and become resilient with throughout your work history, throughout school, right? I mean, like when you started work, it was the women's movement, so there was that adaptiveness.
And I was very involved.
that adaptiveness there, but also, I mean, just like technology, learning to go from a paper system to a computer system, and how to manage all that. And so, really throughout life, you are adaptive to be resilient. And that continues all the way throughout your life.
And I kind of staying on that for just a minute, this cousin that I was talking about that does this, I mean, she has it set up that she said, well, of course I keep a paper calendar. I like to write notes and keep track of some of these things. But when it comes to doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, renewing her medications, whatever, she gets that text. She said, you don't have to worry about that. Oh yeah, I have a dentist appointment tomorrow at 10:30. Boom, I got that. It's back in my head, It's
a reminder.
Yeah, it is. So, there's so many benefits to...
And that's it, too. It's learning how to use these tools to be adaptive, So it's not only adapting to the tools, but then learning how to use them to
benefit yourself.
To benefit yourself and be
right.
And continue to be resilient as maybe things ebb and flow in life.
Right, and I think you made a good point when you talked about being the resilience and the changes. I like to use the term, and it's been very popular this year because of a certain person who's in the White House. But it is a good term. It's called reinventing yourself. It's continuously changing and making yourself somebody different than you were in order to adapt, because you aren't the same person.
Right.
You really aren't.
You evolve.
Yes,
you evolve. You want to evolve. You don't want to be stagnant.
No.
In life, because if you're stagnant, then what's holding you back?
And it's true, because I think people will say, what happened to, you'll see these goofy things pop up on Facebook, and they'll show a picture of a rotary phone and say, who remembers this? Well, I remember it, obviously, but I don't want to go back to it. First of all, my finger doesn't need the free ride back every time. But I mean, it's just so much easier now. Boom.
Right.
But I think on the other hand, it challenges us. It has lessened the challenge for us to remember certain things. It used to be that you could memorize you just knew people's phone numbers.
Right.
You just memorized it.
Right.
Now you don't.
No.
You just go to your favorites or your recents or your contacts and look up the name,
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think maybe that's making room for something else. Maybe, and I was thinking when you said about the rotary phone and looking back, and maybe it's, when you look back at something and you see how far you've come, but you still see something in that can spark a new creativity or something like that.
That's true. Now, the other thing I wanted to ask you about, when we're talking a little bit about some of the things that seniors are concerned about. A lot of people have dropped their landlines.
Yeah.
For cost. Mm-hmm. Do people feel confident that they can reach emergency services through their smartphone, that they can be located as fast as if they were hooked up to a landline? Do you hear that often?
I don't really hear that. I don't think that everyone's taking that in consideration
yeah.
when they are doing that. People...
I mean, if you were out in the middle of the yard and you needed help, the advantage is that you have your cell phone on you can call.
Right.
The disadvantage is that sometimes they don't know where you're at.
Right. I think they're getting pretty good with being able to
better at
ping
it
and things like that, but it depends on where you're at, especially out in the country. What kind of reception do you have? And then, like you said, you have your cell phone on you more often than not. So,
right. Yeah. There's the positives and the.
I like my landline.
Yeah. I'm
a bias. That's my bias.
I swear every month at AT&T, and then I look at my, stock that I own on them, and then I don't swear so much. So yeah. I'm just kind of kidding.
Yeah. No. I like to talk I don't like to talk on a cell phone.
Yeah. Either do I. I think your voice carries better on a landline. I really do think it does. Okay, I see in your newsletter this month that you are talking a little bit about your population trends.
Well, that's not our newsletter.
What is this?
That's
this was your presentation you made yesterday to who?
To the Kendall County Board.
Okay, did Bob Davidson stay awake?
Yes.
Okay. I said that, you didn't. Okay. Now I've got the copy, you don't. I think some of these population trends are pretty interesting. Do you want to discuss them a little bit?
Yeah, I think the population trends are interesting too. So I looked at growth rate. So growth rate is when you take the total populations and then you do some calculations to find the percentage of the growth rate. So this isn't just the percentage of growth, but it's the growth rate. So Kendall County, the total population growth rate was 13.6% in the senior,
from when to when?
2010 to 2015.
Really, 13%?
Mm-hmm. But the senior population, age 60 plus, 32%.
Over double.
So that means that the population is growing older.
When you talk about that number, is that over 55 or over 60?
Over 60.
Over 60,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Over 60. So, and then if you look at that further, you find out that 22.2% of the housing units are occupied by seniors age 60 plus in Kendall County.
22% of the housing is for people over 60.
And 85.4 of those are owned by that senior.
By those seniors.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good home ownership number.
Yeah, 14.6% rent.
Okay.
And interesting there is 32% of the homeowners pay more than 30% of their income in home expenses.
A lot of that is in taxes.
Right. And for renters, 43.5% pay more than 30% of their income in rent.
Rent is very high in Kendall County, as it is in Grundy County.
Yeah. And that's not unusual. I mean, you look across the board, looking at the state of Illinois as a whole, 53.8% of renters pay more than 30%. So that's a full 10% more. And 29.7% of homeowners pay more than 30%, and here we're at 32%. So I thought those were pretty interesting numbers when you think about, who's voting. Number one, that's a quarter of the housing is occupied by seniors.
Right.
And where the property taxes come from.
Do you hear a lot of complaints about, I mean, I can understand you would, but is the biggest discussion when people talk about owning a home the cost of taxes in Kendall County, in the state of Illinois?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's across the state fully. I think you can get, depending on where you're at, it's cheaper different places. But then you have what community are you living in? So,
right.
Yeah, people complain about taxes. But
do you think that? This is just a question. Do you think creating a community within the county specifically for people who are over 55 that would not bring more children into and I know what you're saying about multi-generational living is important, and I get that, but do you think that it would be easier for seniors to live in communities over 55 where there are no children, and perhaps the tax base of supporting a school might be a little bit less?
So, I don't know how all that works. I know that impact fees are changed for senior communities when they are built, and so that's all. I don't know how that's all regulated, but I think that what I really think is that the impact fees should be, if they're going to be for a senior community, they should be for the senior services.
Okay.
So instead of having impact fees that go to the school district, they should go to senior services. And that's because of the aging population. You think about the population of students in Kendall County, and it's a significant population.
It is.
And I have those numbers over there for, let's see here. So 22.4% of the Kendall County population is youth in 2010, and then it went up to only 22.7% in 2015, so a 0.3% increase, which in looking across the state, most areas had no increase or a negative, was the retracted population. So 0.3 is still positive, but the senior population went from 10.5% of the population to 12.2%. with a 1.7% increase. And then you think about, the senior tax levy, which is where most of the money is pulled from for senior services through localized money, is capped at $350,000 and is distributed to 6 entities, I think.
Right.
Whereas the school district, so the school district's budget is about $191 million, and 49% of that comes from property taxes. So, I mean,
and it's going to be, and that number's going to go up because the state can't continue to pay everything that they need to pay.
Right, and so
it's going to come back to us one way or the other.
Right, and it's not that I don't want to deprive the youth of money in order to pay for seniors. You know what I mean? I don't think that's a...
I get what you're saying.
But at the same time, we need to fund senior services and senior centers in the area.
And I get what you say about impact fees. And I get that. However, some people may argue that senior communities take more resources for ambulance, EMS, paramedics, those types of things.
It may be, but when I talked to the fire department, when I just was talking casually with one of the fire department guys, a paramedic, and I said, you know, how many of your calls are senior related? And he said, you know, about 30%. So that's not 100%.
Right. No. But you know what I mean? Yeah, I get that. I get that. And generally, they aren't the most. You know, people have fallen. People need a little bit of help, and sometimes my son, who was a fireman paramedic and has been for 20 years, he said a lot of our calls with seniors are if somebody was just there to help them up, they could have, you know, they'd have been okay.
So then that goes back to needing services for seniors in the community in order to avoid them calling emergency services. Right.
So yeah, we could go that way too.
So thanks for that.
Yeah, no. But I just think it's, you know, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
You know, people I think need to kind of open their minds to, you know, some of the other ways of doing things.
Well, and that's what I told the board yesterday was, you know, some of the things that we need to get over are misperceptions of aging. And so we need to kind of confront some ideas that we have about aging in order to kind of break free, or to, and especially elected officials, you know, to keep in the back of their mind as awareness. You know, am I making this vote with these misperceptions in my mind, or am I making a vote with facts and knowledge?
Right. You know, and I don't think sometimes that people make a vote based on emotion. And I could tell you that I hate that all the years I was on the county board, there were things I did vote on for emotion, but not a lot. But most of the time, you just you know what your resources are going to be. And so if your resources are pinched this much, then you have to make the tough decision as to where things are going to go. And I really do believe that most of the board is not. They are very in favor and very supportive of the seniors and the senior services, but there just is never enough money to go around.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, maybe some of the villages saying, you know what, for every house that's going to be built, we're going to take a little bit less here. We're going to put $200 into the senior group of our area. That will help. You know, a few $100s here and there.
It helps.
It can help, especially at the rate that we're beginning to grow again. I think it's something you might think about.
Yeah.
Don't charge more. Take a little bit less from what you're doing to help us.
Right.
I think it'd be a great program. Listen, we got to take a little bit of a break, and we got to think of something else that we need to bring up and tell these people what they ought to be doing, right? Okay, we'll be right back with Sandy Pastore from the Oswego Senior Center. Stick with us, we'll be right back.
So, I just moved in with his family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that! That's disgusting! Oh, poop already! You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
We'd do anything for kids. Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job!
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
We are back with Sandy Pastore from the Oswego Senior Center. We've been talking about all the different issues about aging in Kendall County, all the different demographics and services and all the things that need to be provided or are being provided and how they impact our seniors population. So we've been talking about that a little bit. This was a presentation you did to the Kendall County Board. They were very receptive to what you said. They all stayed awake. That was a win-win for everybody there. So, let's talk a little bit about what you got going on over there for the holidays right now, so people are kind of aware.
So we are open for the next 2 weeks, but we are closed on this Friday and Monday for Christmas, and then next Monday for New Year's.
Okay.
But we have a New Year's party on Friday before New Year's Eve.
Well, you never know. You might have so many parties to go to. You got to do it early, right? There's nothing wrong with that. You see people kind of slowing down over the holidays for coming in, or do you think it picks up a little bit?
Over the holidays, it slows down because people are busy. They're doing what they need to do to get ready for the holidays.
Or they're gone to
travel or whatever it might be. So some people have already scurried to Florida or Arizona or Mexico.
Oh, those doggone snowbirds, yeah.
Yeah.
You just can't, yeah. And does the population kind of go down for the people coming in through the colder months?
Sometimes, it really depends because there's obviously a lot of people that stay here. So.
Yeah, well, we're going to get a blast of some real Arctic air coming in next week. So,
Yeah. And, if we do get a lot of snow or something like that, cold weather, inclement weather, and we are closed, we do let you guys know here at WSPY. Right. We put it on our website. We also put it on Facebook. And if you signed up for a class that day and we have your phone number, we'll give you a call too.
I know what I was going to ask you about. How's the bus situation going over there? Are you using it every day?
We're using it on Mondays and Thursdays for lunch. We have a volunteer bus driver. He gave around 1,500 rides this past year.
Okay.
To 58 people.
Okay.
So they're coming for lunch.
And so do you have a designated, of course they all probably get a designated time to pick up and they're there in plenty of time. Then do people get to go home when they want to, or do you say the bus is leaving at 1:30?
1 and 2.
The bus leaves at 1 and the bus leaves at 2.
So people can either stay for bingo or not stay for bingo.
Yeah. I thought you said this was more than a bingo place.
It is. It is. There's
but you got to have something.
We have to have something for everyone. People like bingo, and
and you know what? There's a difference there. When you get home at 1:15, the day is still pretty long. You get home at 2:15, 2:30. The day is pretty well. You're not going to start any big projects at that point. You can come home and have a little snooze and get ready for Wheel of Fortune, right?
Yeah. So, and I got to take the bus the other day, so it was nice.
Now, why did you do that?
Because my husband locked his keys in the car and he had to take my car. So
they came and got you.
So, I took it home. My neighbor thankfully drove me to work.
Okay, well that helped.
Yeah.
Now, what are you looking forward to right after the first of the year over there?
So looking forward to the Heart and Bones starting up to 5 days a week. I think that's really going to be beneficial.
So tell us a little bit about that class.
So it's it's kind of like aerobics, and I think they do some chords and different types of exercises. We have free weights that people use. So we have an instructor who's really great. Her name's Joni Grant. She is ranked in the world for powerlifting. I think she's 61 or 62.
You're kidding.
Yeah, and she's got a really great story. She was kind of in a career that was, I think, with technology, so she was sitting a lot. And she had gone to the doctor, and the doctor was not giving her a favorable prognosis on her health.
Yeah, better get busy, girl.
Yeah, so she decided to get moving and lose weight and get healthy, and she did. She lost like 150 pounds, and now she really wants to help other people to do the same thing and to be motivated to be healthy. So she's a really great instructor, so very happy that she came to the Senior Center. And so the new classes will be, I think, in the afternoon.
You know what? I think she would be an interesting person to get on the program sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about, let's get that information from you before, and let's, get her over here and talk about what people can do, how they can improve their health. Doesn't matter what age you are.
No, and one of the things that she says to me a lot of times after class is she's just so amazed by the community that's been formed in the class. Mm-hmm. We just started that class in July, and people come, and when they aren't coming, people are concerned. They're calling them, and it's just a great organic support network that's been formed.
And how many people are coming out to that class?
Anywhere from 12 to 20 people.
Really?
Oh,
and
yeah.
And what room do you do that in?
In the game room, or if we have too many people, we use the.
So it's a little bit of an aerobic and balancing and core strength.
And core strength and muscles and
right.
And
it doesn't include treadmills, exercycles.
No.
Anything like that. You do any boxing?
I think they do some stuff like that.
Some stuff like that,
mm-hmm.
yeah. And that's a lot of coordination on that. That's terrific. I'll get her name. What's her name?
Joni Grant.
Joni Grant. I'll get, what time's her class?
9 a.m.
Well,
Wednesdays,
tell you what.
We're going to do the afternoon classes, so you can come over for that.
Okay, but I'm trying to figure out how to get her on this program.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's Wednesdays and Fridays at 9 a.m. So.
Okay, so I can get her on a Tuesday or a, right. Okay, I'm going to call her today and set her up. Okay, now, when you did your presentation yesterday, what did you think was the most important issue you presented to them?
I think talking about gerontology workforce initiative, I'm very passionate about this. I really think that with the mass population, we really need to be focused on providing a workforce that can be engaged and empathetic and innovative and inventive as we have long-lasting longevity here.
Right.
And, it's not going away. So how can we build the skills with our workforce in order to have better outcomes for seniors? And
seniors have so much to offer when it gets to that point there.
And I was at a local health facility, and I was asking them, how much of your population is geriatric? And they said, around 50-60%. So, how many geriatricians do you have on staff? None.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't quite fit, does it?
Right, but then you look at pediatrics and you say, well, how many pediatricians do you have on staff when it's maybe 40% of what you're doing? So
yeah, I know. Well, sometimes things don't always balance out, but that's why we got people like you.
So I'm gonna work on it. I really that's my goal for next year is to get this going, and I really want the state of Illinois to be on the forefront of this. This is not happening across the nation, so we can make a movement.
All right. Thank you very much, Sandy, for joining us. We'll have a lot more of this whole coming year. Sandy will be back every month to talk a little bit more about how we can age a little bit healthier. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.